Welcome back, Azerothians. This week, we discuss Warcraft then versus now. Was classic Warcraft truly better? We look at the pros and cons from 2004 to 2015. This is episode number 11 of The Edge. Welcome into The Edge. For the 19th of May, 2015, I'll be your host, Sean Clark, or as I'm known around Thrall Valise. As always, I'd like to say a big hello to all the folks in the live stream this evening. If you're listening to this on Stitcher or iTunes, you want to join us for the live show, head over to twitch.tv/The Edge Podcast every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We would love to see you all join in live. There's a lot to cover tonight, and we also have a special guest. So, without further ado, let's bring in some of the team. Contributing author for the Warlords of Draenor Strategy Guide, currently a member of Blizzard Watch, GM and blogger, Mr. Matt Lowe. What's up, Matt?
Dude, you are not going to believe it.
I'm not going to believe it.
I found another guild to merge with.
Dude, that is so stupid.
I know. I can't help it. I mean, I thought we were going to throw in the towel, but then I just happened to find another guild that's in the same position, and they lost a lot of players to the ban wave last week.
Ooh.
Yeah. So our first one's tonight. Wish me a little luck. And speaking of luck, my NVIDIA Hearthstone tournament, the Hearthstone thing, it's not completely dead either. My tournament life is apparently still alive. I thought I was a top 16 that would advance from each region. Turns out it got ranked up to the top 256.
Ooh.
So I'm currently 60th right now.
So you're still in it.
Alive.
Still alive.
Still alive.
So, as you can see, Katie isn't here. Will Will isn't here.
Yeah!
No. But instead, I have my good friend Tom. And this guy, he's a sponsored player for Team Red Panda in Street Fighter 4, Guilty Gear, and Third Strike. A former top-tier raider in both Classic and Burning Crusade, World of Warcraft. First time guest hosting The Edge, Mr. Thomas Chadwick. It's good to have you here, dude. How are you doing tonight?
I am wonderful.
That's good to hear.
It's great to be here finally.
Yes,
I've heard the show, I've seen the show, now I'm on it.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
great.
So tell me, Tom. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Well, how did you get into Warcraft? What did you do? What class did you play? All that kind of stuff.
To keep a long story short, our mutual friend Daryl from way back, I had to go do a homework assignment with him in college, and he was like, "Hey, check this World of Warcraft thing out," and he got ganked by a hunter, and I was like, "Well, that's kind of cool." And I went home that night, watched a few boss raid videos, and I was hooked. I wanted to play, and I wanted to play a hunter because I just remembered how cool it was watching that hunter send in his pet and then just shoot the crap out of Daryl, and that's pretty much it.
There you go. Boom. So you rated, right? Vanilla and BC.
Yep.
Yeah. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but because of course the title of the episode, Rose Tinted Glasses. I mean, we'll talk about how things have changed then versus now. As for me, I've been playing a lot of Heroes of the Storm, actually with my good friend Tom here lately. Hit almost level 11 with Jaina, so still working on her a little bit. Also, open beta goes live today for Heroes of the Storm, so if you haven't been able to play or you haven't gotten into the beta, go ahead and check that out. We would love to see you join into a game so we can just absolutely demolish you. And also tonight starts a new raid week for me. Hans and Franz Mythic is what we're still working on. There's been a little bit of glitchy bugs with the smart stamper phases, and also we're kind of stupid, so yeah, thanks, Matt. So getting into this debate, regular, gold. We're going to talk about gold. We're going to talk about raiding. We're going to talk about questing. Those are the three big primary factors that we want to focus on with vanilla versus Warlords of Draenor. So the first things first is gold. So getting gold in vanilla actually wasn't very easy, and I know that a lot of you guys who started later on, maybe Wrath or even further, it wasn't. You don't really understand this concept. So the first thing I want to do is I want you to really figure out the conversion rate of then versus now. So to put it in perspective, the conversion rate in 2004 for 100 gold was $34 US for 100 gold. That is crazy. Okay. To compare it to now, in 2015, the conversion rate for 4,000 gold is $4.50. The inflation is crazy. Gold back then was insanely hard to get. If you had like 1 gold, you were like the man. If you had 100 gold, you were like crazy addicted to the game. And if you had an epic flying mount, you were part of a very low percentage of players that did.
It's not even epic flying, just epic riding in general.
Just epic riding, yeah. So that's actually one of the first points we're going to talk about. The mount prices and epic riding, right? So originally the prices were 100 gold for level 40, which is 60% mount speed, and then 1,000 gold for level 60, which was 100% mount speed, and that's the epic. And that's
can I bring up a point about that?
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, it wasn't the skill that cost a bunch of gold. It was the mount itself.
Right.
So now everyone's mount crazy. You got your one. You better pick right, because that's going to be your mount for a long, long time.
Yeah.
'Cause it was like 50 for the skill and then 1,000 for the mount.
Yeah.
I mean, mine was the blue Night Saber. That was my very first epic mount.
I think that was mine as well.
Yep, the blue one. The blue one looked great.
I don't remember what my first one was. I think it was like a red something.
Mechano Strider?
Man, maybe. I don't. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. I don't remember. I'll have to think about that. Okay, so like I said, 100 gold for level 40, 60%. 1,000 gold for 100%, and that was at max. That was at level 60. And then, of course, you can still get faction discounts, which were actually rather really hard to obtain because of grinding out
like
rep.
Exalted or something.
Yeah.
Or Reputation, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was exalted with your faction. And then somewhere along the line, they added riding skills and split the cost to 90-10. So 90 for the mount, 10 for the skill, which is what Tom just said. And then they reversed it to 90 for the skill and actually cheaper for the mount, so 90-10 in terms of ratio. And that was when right around the Burning Crusade. So other things you would do to get items, you would farm. And I mean farm. You would do a lot of the same instances, a lot of the same areas to try to find items such as Kroll's Blade or even a Staff of Jordan that went for pretty decent prices, about 150 to 250 gold depending on the server.
You sold Rune Cloth.
Or sold Rune Cloth. That was actually a really big part of it too. And it was really, really, really difficult to get gold. Professions were insanely hard to level, very, very costly. Just a lot different than it is now. So for you guys, I mean, I know that it's been a while since we played in vanilla, but I mean, what can you remember about gold in general and how important it was to the game, at least starting out and then furthering into the level cap? I mean, gold was basically essential in my opinion.
Well, I think I remember the biggest thing was just even when you're out leveling or grinding or doing whatever, if you found an epic, it could be an epic that was like like a BOE epic, like for your class, like, oh, I could use this. This would be really good. Even before you got into Molten Core or Blackwing or Nixie, any of that stuff, you'd find an epic, but then you'd have to play with like, do I take this for the stats or do I sell it for 20 gold on the auction house? Because 20 gold was like, oh, well, that's a lot of gold. Like, I'd do a lot with that. So getting gold was... It was a struggle back then. Like, if you wanted anything on the auction, like, the best way to get gold back then was seriously just to pay for it.
Yeah. And even then, I mean, it's things were
ripped off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got ripped
expensive.
off. You got ripped off big time. So now comparing it to gold in Warlords, I mean, let's be honest. At least now, I don't farm anymore at all. I bought a couple wild tokens when they're at their peak, and I'm sitting on about 100,000 gold right now for like no damn reason. I just have it. Sitting there. I use it for repairing. I use it for other things I need to buy, potions and whatever for raiding, but that's it. I mean, I don't really care. So, in my opinion, there's really not much to do with gold anymore unless you want mounts or you want to buy game time with it. So, I guess the first question is making gold so easily available hurting or helping the game, in your opinion? Like, I know with Tom, you haven't played in Warlords, but at least from your experience in the game, do you think it's making gold that easily available is hurting or helping the game?
I don't think it's either. Honestly, it just depends on how Blizzard wanted to use gold. One of the problems with any sort of game that has longevity like this is the game will make gold on its own. like just from quests. Like gold is just generated, and there's no way to control. There's money sinks, but there's not enough in the game. Like, and if they really wanted to, they could have just put way more money sinks in the game, but they don't. And I don't think it hurts or harms the game. If anything, it just hurts like the livelihood of some Chinese guys. Like that's really it. I mean, so in my opinion, no,
Too.
I don't think it's a bad thing that gold is relatively ignored, or less important than it was in the beginning or in the first two games. So yeah, definitely not.
So I know Matt obviously is agreeing with you on that point, Tom. So I guess, without asking Matt that same question, I mean, what features do you think they should add into the game to help with that? We don't care, Matt. We don't care about you. I mean, it was what features they add? Should they add more gold sinks? Should they add more mounts? Should they add more value onto gold? I feel like gold now is kind of like in the game is kind of like Diablo 3 gold. It's just kind of like it's just there.
I guess it depends on add more stuff to buy, I guess. Put in more rare vendors, put in more like stuff that costs an astronomical amount of gold. Like you want this mount, well then you're 1 million. Like grind it out. Something like that. And I mean that would help control the economy a little bit more and make gold more important, but at the end of the day, like I think it's inflated to the point where gold is really kind of just there for fun now, and it's cosmetic more than it is useful. I'm sure that you still have to pay gold for like bags and consumables and stuff like that, but I think it's gotten to the point where maybe it doesn't matter as much like it used to. Gold used to be such a problem in raiding. Like dudes couldn't even afford their repair bills, and now, like you said, you're sitting on 100K and it's worth about 30 cents. So
yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
really, they just need to put more fun stuff in the game.
Yeah.
If they wanted to make gold more important, they would. But as the game stands, I don't think it makes a difference here, like in the long run.
So what do you think, Matt? Do you think that the reason why they don't do anything with gold is because they don't want to influence the botters and the Chinese gold farmers?
Yeah, I absolutely think that's one of the major things, because if you make it so that gold's relatively easy for people to obtain, then there's going to be no market. Because why would I buy gold from some random website when I can just simply do 30 minutes worth of garrison stuff, or sell whatever comes out of my whatever that thing is called, that garrison building, the whatever shack thing, right? Like sort of little things like that. And I think the game's better now because of it. Like you mentioned earlier, you don't have to worry about repairs or potions or flasks or any of that stuff.
Right.
Back in vanilla, however, you would have had to spend an inordinate amount of time getting your fire resist potions, getting your tubers, getting your dark runes, getting all this and that was time.
Yeah.
So like I'm almost positive like some guilds probably spent more time actually farming than they did raiding.
Yeah, I mean, and then I can't remember the name.
For gold too.
I can't remember the name of that. It was like something quintessent. It was the water
aqua quintessence.
Yeah, remember you had to go out and
thing?
you had to go out in the middle of like the ocean and kill this like elemental that would so you could go in to MC.
Yeah, to do your quest.
Like that was
put out the fires.
And then if only if one guy didn't do it or whatever and everyone else did, then you had to go do it. Like in the middle of a raid, you'd have to go take your ground mount and go to that area, and it was crazy. Like I mean, it's just not like it is today. But we'll get into the rating and stuff here in just a second.
And circling back to gold, and that's a good thing though, because you want this game to be accessible. You don't want some guy to be like, I'm gonna stop playing WoW because I don't have the time right now to go get gold. And you want this game to be accessible to players where they can say, okay, I can get whatever gold I need for my necessities. If I want that shiny mount, or the awesome crafted epic mount, or mythic gear or whatever, like at the black market auctions, which is a great gold sink, by the way, like they can do it that way. That's another avenue for them to dump their gold in.
Right.
The WoW token, like that's another feature that they just recently added, which is another excellent gold sink. It's another way for players to get to get gold out of the game and also earn game time for themselves without having to spend real money. And it's also a great way for guys like me who don't have that time to get gold that way.
It's also interesting to see that when Blizzard releases the amount of people that actually bought the token, since they just had released 3 million people were unsubbed, but it doesn't account for the people that are paying for their game time with WoW tokens. So that's going to be an interesting number when Blizzard, if and when they decide to release that as well.
Yeah,
so
the next quarter.
Yeah. So moving on, questing is the next thing we want to talk about. So questing in vanilla was not easy. Okay. it's not like you guys have it now where it's almost hand holding. It's like, okay, this is where we go now, and this is the nice cinematic we get after every 5 or 6 quests, and it just wasn't like that back in the day. For example, from 45 to 60, you actually had to grind mobs to hit the level cap. Yeah, that's right. You heard me right. You had to grind mobs. Vanilla simply just didn't have enough quests for you to do, so instead people would just go and farm mobs, not only to level but to increase their rep with certain factions for things such as attunements, items, or mounts. And we'll get to attunements here if you don't know what that phrase is. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of words. Yeah, plenty
That's
of
not
words.
a thing anymore?
No,
Really?
no, they haven't done. They haven't done
Just walk
attunements.
in.
Yeah.
I think they stopped doing
I'd like to raid
attunements
today, please. I will walk in, please.
They stopped in what, end of BC, I think. So first leading it off, quest experience was absolute garbage. It was minimal at best. You would have to go to the other side of Stranglethorn Vale to kill like 15 tigers and then run all the way back down again, and they would give you like 200 experience. Like, congratulations. Also in 15 copper. So good job on that.
You would also get ganked 13 times on the way.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
That's
especially
not a good thing.
especially in Stranglethorn. Yeah, quest helper wasn't a thing, so good luck finding that random quest hub in the middle of absolutely nowhere. There was no let me go look this up on my map or let me go check it out online or no. You ran around until you found it, and it sucked. Especially when it was like, oh, you need to go find this guy, and they don't tell you where to look, and come to find out he's on the other continent, like in some random ass spot, like on a cliff, and you're like, what? Like, where did that even come from? So, the other thing that's a lot different then than now is running into a rare mob while doing a quest. Back in the day was super exciting. If you remember, like somewhere like Stitches, for example, running into him on the road, and all of a sudden you want to take him down, and he would just absolutely wreck you.
Technically, that's a quest mob.
Technically, yes, but I mean, like, it's still the example of you running into him for the first time and seeing him, and you're like, whoa, like, that is so cool. But for the sake of argument, yes, he technically wasn't a rare mob, but if you were to run into a rare mob, it was exciting, but ultimately futile, because if you didn't have a group with you, you weren't going to take that guy down. That dude would just wipe the floor with you. I don't know if you guys remember running into any rare mobs back in the day, but that's what it was like. I mean, it wasn't like
Hunter, so I had to go look for the
Lock the Law and Rock the Law and well, those are quest mobs too, I guess.
Yeah.
Still,
Well, I mean, like the pets were actually it was actually significant to get a rare one because they would have better stats than the regular like tiger.
Yeah.
So
and that makes a big difference too. Speaking of things that are tailored to your class, those quest rewards that you're doing, no, not for you. You wear a plate. Well, guess what? Your quest reward was a couple of pieces of cloth items or a wand.
That would sell for 3 copper.
Yeah, that would literally sell for nothing. Exactly. So, and obviously that's a lot different than it is now. And did I mention what's that thing? Flying was not even considered. They actually had a ceiling in the game where you couldn't even go, you could see it, but virtually the mountains and things where they weren't like 3-dimensional. And they actually didn't even have textiles at the top. It was just like a, there's
Textures,
just the top. Yeah, it was just the top of the
I
mountain.
didn't have textiles either.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, different things we're talking about here.
Yeah,
involved.
that's also true. So you went everywhere by ground mount, literally everywhere. And Flight Pass became your best friend. So if you didn't go pick up that Flight Path and you missed it, and your buddy's like, you're out questing, you go, oh, yeah, it's so awesome, I grabbed that Flight Path. No.
Which is odd, because you got a lot of people right now that are clamoring for that nostalgia vanilla feel, and then they took away flying in this expansion. People are like, no, give us back flying.
Yeah, you want the nostalgia feel. You need to spend the next 45 minutes running from the bottom of one continent to the other end of the continent and enjoy it, because that's what it was like. It was a lot slower. Things took a lot longer to do. And to even start raiding, you had to gain attunement. And the reason why I mention it here is because that meant a very, very long quest line, and that ties into the quests. You had to kill hundreds of the same mobs over and over, and actually cost you some gold as well to finish out your attunements. So for you guys who don't know, do any of you guys care to explain what an attunement is, or would you like me to do it?
Nope.
I mean, the long and short of it is like doing a bunch of busy work and a bunch of stupid BS, basically, to gain access for the ability to go in a raid. Like, you can walk up to the gate all you want, or the instance portal, but it won't let you in unless you've done all the
for it, or
you got to do the work. before you get to do the work.
And it was like the way for you to prove your worth as a raider, that you were ready to ascend into the upper echelons and challenges of raiding. That, ooh, you did all this crap here, this giant checklist of killing 5 or 6 different heroic dungeon bosses and doing a couple of time quests and collecting 30 skulls or whatever the hell it was.
So you can wait in line and get mind controlled into the lava by some priest.
Yep.
That was me, by the way.
Achievements were terrible. They weren't fun. Anyone who tells you they missed achievements and wish achievements were back in the game is lying.
So it's a badge of honor, though. Some of them.
It is.
Some of them are.
And it was a good way to demonstrate that you were dedicated to the game and stuff like that. But what sucked was that when they got to the point where there were enough people to raid with, and then you had people who wanted to raid, but they just could not get the achievements on their own. So now raid weeks not only had you going back and doing raids, but you had to dedicate some of the time to both gearing and making sure that new players coming in were properly attuned so that they could join your raid to begin with in the first place, which is a complete total waste of time.
Yep.
And only to find out that maybe they actually just weren't cut out for it.
Yeah.
For raiding.
Yeah.
So dumb. You can tell I'm pretty damn bitter about that, by the way.
Yeah, I can't wait to actually talk about the rating part, which is going to be fun.
God.
So as comparative to questing was then as it is now, I mean, let's be honest, from 90 to 100, it might take a casual week, maybe 2. And I'm saying really casual player, maybe a couple hours every other day, kind of casual. I leveled my alt paladin in about 1 day. Less than 1 day.
9 hours. Get on my level.
Exactly. I mean, and this guy stacked speed potions and everything else that you can probably imagine. So, I mean, you know, and I'm not going to go that far because it's my alt, so I don't care. You know what I mean? I'm going to do a couple of things I didn't do on my main, or I'm going to check out these certain areas I didn't go check out on my main. You know, so from 90 to 100. Yeah, shut up. So 1 day. So there's little to no challenge with leveling. It's just go, pick up the quest, look on your map. There's already a quest helper built into the game now. You go to that area, you complete the quest, you're done. Boom. Absolutely zero challenge to the game. So questing is actually almost too easy now. It's not a challenge. It's not fun. It's very like grindy feeling. Okay, I go do this. Okay, great. Now I got to go do this. Okay, great. There's no thinking or skill involved. It's just you kind of go and do it. The storylines are much more engaging visually, especially in Warlords. I remember the first playthrough I had on my rogue. It was actually a lot of fun, and the storyline was good, and I enjoyed it. But once you've done it a few times, they become more of a hindrance than an enjoyment because of the, I don't know, it's just the quest lines, and you just know how it's going to end, and you're just kind of like, okay, I just got to get through this part and this part and this part, then I can finally go to this other area, and I can really boost the experience and level up faster. So, something else that's tailored quite opposite from vanilla is almost every quest reward is geared to either give you an upgrade or a decent amount of gold, which is, again, no challenge for you. You're kind of expecting those things now. You know, if you go and do a very mediocre task, you're expecting the world. And it shouldn't be like that. It never was like that. And the fact that it is like that now is actually almost insulting. So
why is that insulting?
I think it's insulting. I mean, I think it's insulting because
you think quest rewards are insulting? I'm not following the logic here.
I think that being given something based off of minimal to no skill and or effort and getting like a huge upgrade is insulting into the game.
Like greens.
Well, and for us, in the day it would have been greens. Now everything is either
everything's purple or blue now. It seems like.
Purples are what we get out of raids, which is the hardest content in the game. Hardest content in the game. Blue is for completing epic milestone flagship quests, like the storyline quests in a particular zone, for instance.
Right.
It just shows that all the effort you've done accumulates into one big reward. And you got to understand, we are veterans in this game. We've played this game for a really, really long time. We've got a combined 20 years worth of experience playing this game, like easily between the three of us right now. Not everyone has a little of experience as we do. Not everyone that picks up the game for the first time can go, do I want the shield, the dagger, or the wand? You know, like not many people can make that kind of distinction on their own. And yes, maybe they should learn and read it, but at the same time, you don't want to get them buyer's remorse and be like, I screwed up, I don't want to play this game anymore because I made the wrong choice. No, that stuff can come later on at the end game once they're more familiar with the game, the rewards, and how the mechanics works. I think for the most part right now, questing is in a perfect spot because this game, it's supposed to be it's supposed to build upon the longevity of the franchise and all stuff. And the only way you can do that is by attracting new players in. And if you artificially institute some kind of a gating mechanism where the level of elitism just, where people like us look down on newer players coming in, this game doesn't grow, this game doesn't expand, and eventually it's going to die. So I understand what you're saying in terms of it being too easy and stuff like that, but the complexity that can come later on. But we still got to keep this game accessible to all the new players that are coming in, because otherwise we're going to be out of a game in a couple of years.
I'm a little conflicted with Matt on the questing thing. For one, I hated questing. I didn't like grinding from 1 to 60 in vanilla. I didn't like.
Did you like killing like Korean style MMOs
70.
of like blowing up 30,000 boars though? Like that's the alternative.
No.
You see what I mean? Like like no one
like,
wants to do the lineage style of killing boars over and over and over again. Like that's just dull.
So the questing is lame, and again, I think it's one of those things that we wear like a badge of honor, like going through Stranglethorn Vale and then South Shore, where all the PvP happened. So all that it's cool. It's cool to look back on and be like, well, back in my day, this was not easy. But at the same time, I'm okay with questing being easy because I just want to kill bosses. I'm not really into the lore or anything. I was always like, I want to make posts on elitist jerks. I don't want to like talk about the lore in the WoW forum. So it's kind of like a give and take. Like I would prefer the questing to be, I guess, difficult just because, but I don't really have a good reason to say other than because it was hard for me back in the day.
Right, but not every quest has to be impossible though either, right? Like I think
definitely
the majority of quests should be accessible, should be easily doable by everyone, no matter what their skill level or gear level is.
You should learn how to play your character through quests.
Definitely, and you can have a couple of really, really rare ones that are really difficult, or you can classify them as what do you call them? Those remember those group quests we had back in the day, the elite ones? Mm-hmm. Like those ones were really hard. You had to do them in a group, and I think I think they made a mistake of doing away with those. But on the other hand, you don't really see a lot of people grouping up anyways, and then it's just going to take up space on your quest log too, right? So,
well, I mean,
a bit of a give and take there.
Even back in the day, like if something was supposed to be a group quest, it wouldn't tell you. It would just be really hard, and you had to figure it out.
It would be orange, and be like,
big orange or red,
kill Lord Thalnos or whatever that dude, that archer guy.
Yeah, it'd be like bounty, kill this guy.
Yeah.
Get your ass kicked for 3 hours.
Yeah, and you just couldn't get him at all.
I mean, I can understand what you're saying, man. I think the reason why a lot of the rewards are the way that they is based on the 90 boost system. I mean, no one is actually going through and leveling from level 1 anymore. No one is. I don't care. I mean, I guess maybe some people are, but I mean,
that are doing that,
right?
Because they don't want to spring for the $60 or whatever it is.
Exactly. So it's still a lot of money, but a majority of people, and even when you buy Warlords, you get the free 90 anyways. So they're like, well, now we have to basically let you learn your character in 10 levels rather than you learning it from 100 levels. So that also makes a huge difference as well. And I get it, longevity of the game, catering to new players, but it's still one of those things where at least more options or making them have to think.
You want mythic quests, that's what you want.
Not even mythic quests, just being able to like get a couple different pieces of gear and thinking, why should I choose this gear over that gear? Even if it explains it to them, like this is why I should choose this over that. That's still even better than here it is. Like this is your one choice. This is what you get. Enjoy it, and then replace it in, another 5 or 6 quests. So, moving forward, what we talked about rare mobs earlier in Warlords, you found a rare mob, that's awesome, but now go solo it. Little thinking, very little skill. They've changed that completely as well. The drops can be good, can not be good. It's a rare mob. They want to make it more functional for everyone. Again, I understand. Just not something I was particularly into. And also, unlike vanilla, there are an abundance of quests to complete in Warlords. It's not necessarily difficult to complete most of these quests. However, it's just very time consuming. They definitely have added in a lot of content for you to do, whether it's the seasonal events or just Darkmoon Fair stuff or whatever. There's a lot of things to do now in the game versus what used to be. Like you had mentioned earlier, Matt, group quests are actually a thing of the past. You can solo most of these group quests all the way to 100, even without talking to another human being. So, so much for that MMO part of World of Warcraft.
You laugh, but there's actually a subset of the subscriber base who don't want to like interact with anyone. They just want to do solo stuff the whole way through.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what things like Brawler's Guild is for too, right? So, and along with other like quest zones that open up, like that's who they're for. But there's a lot of them that they don't care about the MMO part of this MMO, or the MM part of the MMO, if that makes more sense.
And I think that's really crazy. I think that some of our fondest memories and some of the reasons why we have the friendships we do today is because of the MM part of the MMORPG. Some of my best friends I have are because of this game. So soloing that content just because you want to, just because you're of a different generation, doesn't necessarily give you the excuse to validate it. You're coming into our world. We're not transforming into yours. So, you should learn to be a multiplayer person, learn to engage rather than, you telling us, oh, I don't want to, so make it so I can solo it because I don't want to talk to people.
One man raid.
Yeah. They call it Brawler's Guild and, whatever zones are out there in the field, right? Like, that's what they're there for. Whereas things like LFR or...
Even if LFR, no one talks.
Yeah, that's true. No one really talks on that either, but it's just a way for them to see the content, I guess.
Blizzard just wants everyone to see the content.
Of course.
That was the small amount of people that actually got to see Nax Ramus in vanilla was like a wake-up call. Like, this was the coolest thing that we ever made, and like 3 people saw it.
Yeah,
it was like what?
That's why they brought it back again for Wrath, right?
Yeah.
So.
It was less than 1%, I think, of their rating.
3% of the population got to see the inside of Nax Ramus.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then the last thing to bring up, obviously, in this case, is there's no more attunements. So quest rating is handed to you. You don't earn it. You just got to earn it by leveling, which is, again, not challenging. So, that being said, what features would you like to see added in with questing? The return of group quests, more challenging quest lines, more class-oriented quests, such as the Fellfire Warlock quest, things like that, add a little bit more specific variety into your class. And even when leveling alts, adds a little bit of variety and flavor. Or, I know, Matt, you feel pretty comfortable where everything is now.
Yeah, I did Benediction once before. I have no desire to redo all that crap again.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd do Benediction for other priests in my guild. So,
I think that forcing almost like a scenario type of situation where if you were to do a quest and you're literally getting forced into playing with other people would be kind of cool. Obviously, if you can't queue into anybody, like say it's later on the expansion and no one's on that quest, obviously you can get some kind of NPC style help, and that way it feels like it. But if anything, it's forcing you to interact with people, I think, is going to be better. And I think they're going towards that method anyways with Mythic Dungeons, Mythic 5-mans. If you pug a Mythic 5-man, there's no way you are ever going to be silent during a Mythic 5-man. Because you can't be. You have to CC. You have to coordinate. You have to have communication, yeah. So they are going back to more of that MMO, massive multiplayer, actually have to talk to you style of gaming rather than, hey, how you doing? And crickets. So, getting into the probably the most fun part of this conversation is vanilla rating, and I wrote in here, vanilla rating, you are not prepared, and you were friggin' right, you were not prepared. Seriously, you weren't. Not to mention the grind to 60, the long attunement quest, and other miscellaneous items that you needed to have. So, thinking for like fire resist for molten core, like we had mentioned earlier. And the frequent DCing that made you rage because that 2.5 hour queue to get back on your server. But guess what? Not a single person really knew how to play their class. Yeah, that's right. Everyone was really terrible at the game. And in hindsight, everyone thinks, oh, it was better. But it wasn't necessarily better. We just didn't know what we know now about the game. And in actuality, most classes only had 1 or 2 buttons to press during a raid. And that's no joke. I know that sounds crazy, and you probably think that I'm, absolutely talking out of my ass right now. But that is 100% the truth. You'd press 1, maybe 2 buttons the whole time. So you think the button below before was bad, and now they take it all away and they've reduced it down. You think it's easy now? No. It was pretty easy then too. Because nothing else did damage. You had a couple items or a couple abilities. Think about it. This for warriors, for example. Warriors were only allowed to hit Sunder armor. Think Devastate without damage. Okay, that's it. That was literally all they did. They weren't even allowed to do damage. They were only allowed to hit Sunder armor. That was their only job.
Up,
to keep the aggro up, and that was it. And there was a lot of tanks who would actually make Sunder armor macros and walk away. they would leave their computer during the middle of a boss encounter because they had nothing else to do except run the macro and just leave. So you got to figure too, MMO, Champ, Icy Veins, other sites didn't really exist. And I know you guys can attest this, but raiding was hard, and it took time and dedication. There was no, let's just go look up that strat for this fight. You made it up as you went along, and it was a trial and error. It was you building those relationships with people because you needed to.
There was no PTR. There was no way you could scout out or test bosses or whatever. The only site that was up at the time was Elitist Jerks, which is a shadow now of what it once formerly was.
Same thing with Tank Spot. Then Tank Spot.
I don't think Tank Spot's even around anymore.
No, Tank Spot's not even around anymore. But they rose up after right around the Burning Crusade-ish time, and they were huge for a long time.
When did Thoughtbot die? Anybody remember that?
Oh man,
Thoughtbot probably right around the time WoW had kicked into full gear.
I'd say because were they like really similar? And I thought Thoughtbot was more like a.
It was just
it's more like a WoW wiki.
Where to find stuff.
Yeah, it was more like a WoW wiki kind of thing. Yeah. Back then.
Bosskillers.com.
Yeah, there you go. That's something I haven't heard that in a long time.
Like what the top guilds were. There was no other way to Blizzard didn't do.
There was no
their
WoW
own
progress.
tracking. It was just bosskillers.com. And the only proof you had was here's my guild in front of the dead boss.
Yep. Screenshot.
That's it. Picture. Nihil at top of everything because they had the first picks.
Mass res was not a thing.
No, you had to just individually res people.
Yep. And then run back. And oh, dear God, the run backs. And now I know what you're thinking. Running back's not that hard from the beginning of the instance, guys. In the beginning of the raid, that's pretty easy. Oh, no. Oh, no.
These are big dungeons.
Not only are they...
You start at the beginning. It's not like you just zone in and port like halfway through an instance or at certain checkpoints.
No. You rezzed at the graveyard.
Yeah, that too.
You rezzed at the graveyard halfway down the continent, then had to run back in your little ghost area form, which is not as fast as it is now, which is normal speed, by the way. And then you had to zone in and then spend another 15 minutes to run back to where you were in the encounter. In the huge dungeon.
And then you had to buff everybody.
Yeah.
and then you had to eat your consumables.
Yeah. So, again, that ties to the next point, making sure you were raid prepped, i.e. Symbol of Kings or Might for Paladins. Every time you want to cast one of those, it costs you a raid material. Ammo for your guns or for your bows. I know, Tom, you remember all that stuff. With
we had one less. Us and Warlocks had one less bag slot than everyone else because we had to put ammo in it.
Soul shards and Warlocks,
Yeah, and that was. There was people. I remember raiding people saying, "I'm out of ammo. I forgot to grab the ammo in the middle of the boss encounter," and here he is. This guy completely forgets his ammo.
They have to go in melee range, and was it Mongoose or whatever it is? Whatever the hell it was? Hawkstrike, something.
Back then you couldn't even go in melee range because there was minimum range.
Oh, there was minimum. That's right.
Yeah, hunters had to stay a minimum range or else they couldn't attack.
8-yard thing. That
was funny. Of course, for me as well, poison for daggers, and also other pots and raid items you had to bring as well. Here's something that really sucked that I had to do back when I played my paladin, and I was kind of a spot healer. Paladin buffs lasted only 30 minutes in a 40-man raid, and you had to buff each person individually.
Well, greater blessings.
I thought only last 4 minutes, and they had to be
That was individual.
That was individual.
Okay. Yeah, that's one.
But then they came up with greater blessings, which lasted 15 minutes.
Right.
And that was on a per class basis. Was it 10? Yeah,
I think it was 10 starting in Burning.
And it got buffed up.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. And this is after it got buffed. So originally it was 10 minutes, and you had to buff them individually. So by the time you were done buffing every person individually, you only had like 3 minutes already gone, maybe even 4 minutes, and that means you had to bring 2 stacks for every pull. 2 stacks. That's crazy. Like you would literally, like, your bag would be like 3/4 full of just Symbol of Kings and Might.
And then you wished you played Horde. They didn't have paladins back then.
Exactly.
You just had to drop totems whenever.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm gonna jump ahead one, and it's funny because everyone nowadays complains like, oh, my spec isn't good, or I want to be able to play this, and this isn't the highest damage spec, or I'm like 2K below everyone else. Okay, well, here's the thing. You want to show up to the raid, right? And you want to play Ellie, Arcane, BM, Enhancement, Shadow, Disc, Prot, Ret, Pharaoh, Balance, Survival, Destro, Demo. Nope. All of those. You'd get kicked from the raid for showing up in such a shit spec. People would mock you and laugh at you. They would. Literally, all of those specs were unplayable at endgame. You had one spec, maybe, if you were lucky, per class that you could actually play. The rest of them were absolutely terrible. Oh, and back then we actually had skill trees. not tic-tac-toe. So that actually took some time too. And if you don't know what a skill tree is, go ahead and Google that now.
The theory crafting was much more difficult.
Of course, yeah.
Back then, just because of the sheer amount of options that were given to you.
I mean, put it this way, and this is going to probably sound ridiculous to most players that have been playing post-Wrath, but Warriors wouldn't even spec into something like Shield Slam back in the day, because that was stupid. Who ever spec'd into Shield Slam? Why would you?
And if you picked a class that had a heal, you're a healer.
You're a healer.
That's it.
That's what I'm saying.
You don't get to play anything else. You're a healer. It doesn't matter. If you have a heal, you're a healer.
That's why that's like I just said, no shadow, no disc. If you're a priest, nah.
All that stuff was useless.
Holy.
Like, there was nothing built around that to make it better than just a raw DPS or raw tank class.
Same thing with paladins. You want to be ret or prot? Nope. You're holy. You're healing. One other thing, Blackrock Depths. That's all I got to say about that. Because that was so much farming. It was gross.
Not much has to be said.
Yeah, if you guys don't know.
It was just really long. It was like 3 dungeons condensed into one area, and you can do different wings. So that's what these guys are talking about here, being it like a nightmare.
Yeah, and you had to farm it for MC rep. So you go and kill and kill
Fire
and
resist
kill
gear,
and kill
your
and kill
fire
and
neck.
kill. Yeah, it was terrible. One thing that was kind of cool was 40-man raids felt really epic. It really, like, back in the, I don't know about you guys, but at least I can attest that back in the day, man, like, getting 40 people in a raid, even though 25 of them were terrible, but it felt more like you guys were actually raiding something. It felt like us and people in Azeroth were, like, going and, like, attacking something together as, like, a whole. I mean, I don't know if you guys feel that way, but it just felt more epic to me in that regard.
Yeah, there's a lot more people.
You know, it felt better. You know, just I don't know. It just there's more sense of unity and togetherness than there is now.
But then you got to understand the reality of that, though, is that you actually had 10 good players, 20 mediocre players, and 10 players who were actually AFK the whole time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
There's less accountability in the 40-man, and I think the bosses were attuned, or they were tuned in a way that could compensate for that. Until Blizzard didn't get it right until probably. Well, I mean, Blackwing Lair is when they started to like understand like what the characters are supposed to do, or how they actually tune the characters to the raid and vice versa. Whereas Molten Core was a lot of like, all right, this boss does like one thing, like be aware of it, just like DPS it, and don't stand in fire. That was it.
Yeah,
There's a fear bomb, and then he just breathes fire. Like that was really
just don't stand in
the complexity. Yeah.
So UIs weren't a thing. We all used default.
I had CT Raid and Decursive. That's all you really needed as a healer.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone had the same setup. I mean, it was terrible. Also, remember, this is like 2004, right? So everyone had these really crappy, like 15-inch monitors that looked like terrible, the CRT cathode ray tube monitors that were just gross looking.
Or even the LCDs that we had at the time were pretty
gross.
Garbage.
Yeah. So it was all grainy and dark and just looked terrible.
Even our computers sucked. Like, to be quite honest, like that first computer I played WoW on was a gigantic piece of crap. So
Pentium 3, baby.
Oh yeah, I had like a compact or something terrible.
Yeah, it was like a gateway of
I had like a Phantom something.
I built mine from scratch.
Of course you did. One thing that was actually really weird, and this is going to sound, again, really crazy to people that aren't used to this, but ranking of your spells. Now, you guys are going to know what I'm talking about when I say this, but when you were actually in a raid later on at endgame, you'd actually have to downrank your spells to conserve mana. So think about this. Each spell has a rank as you level. So, for example, think Flash of Light for a Paladin. Rank 1 you get like right from the get-go, whatever. Rank 2 you might get at like level 15. Rank 3 you might get at like level 26 or something, or whatever. So if you want to actually be a good healer end game raid, you don't take your highest ranked heal, you take your mid tier heal, because it conserves mana but yet still gives you a decent heal. It makes no sense. If you were to take your rank, I think it was rank 5 or 6 was the highest. If you were to take that end game, and you would get maybe 3 casts off before you'd yourself.
Yeah.
It was stupid. And again, you would get mocked if you went into a raid and you still had all your like rank 5s or whatever it was all in your bars, because everyone would be like, what are you doing? Like, are you serious? You're using your end game talents at the end game raids? Are you dumb? You know what I mean? Like, it made no sense, but that's what you had to do back then. Just really, really weird stuff. The other thing that was weird is people staying out of combat during boss encounters to be perma-resers. That was interesting mechanic. That was
That was
obviously
neat.
yep. That was obviously very broken. We have battle reses now to compensate for that, but people would do that all the time. And
We had to set up healing rotations where 4 healers would stay out of combat and not do anything to trigger the 5 second rule, which is no longer in effect anymore
yep,
because you had two kinds of mana regen. You had your in combat mana regen and then you had your out of combat mana regen. Obviously, if you're out of combat, I believe it gave you like a 400% bonus or whatever it
yeah,
is to
it was a
to
lot.
your
It's like
spirit,
it
something
was
like
like
that. So
3 or
that's
4 to
how.
1.
So we actually had to set up rotations where, for example, on Chromagus, I would heal for a good solid 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or whatever it was with my rank 4, rank 5, rank 1. I think it was rank 1 or rank 2 greater heal. All I did was just hit that the whole time, and
Yeah.
it healed for like 300, and our tanks had 1,000 or something, or like 1,000-ish health.
Yeah,
So I would heal for about 20 to 40% of their health at a time while expending, like my mana would go down incrementally until I was done, and then at which point I would just signal my healing leader and tell him, "Hey, I gotta swap out for someone else. Cover me, right?" And then I would just move over and just get out of combat and then regen that way. MP5 was a total thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
yeah, it was it sucked.
Hunters had mana bars.
yeah. Hunters had mana bars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
mana.
that's right.
Intellect gear, right, or whatever
Yep.
it was.
Yeah, hunters wanted everything back in the day. If you played a hunter, you didn't know what the hell you wanted because you wanted everything. If you were in a group with a hunter, you hated them because they would roll on everything.
You still do hate grouping with hunters, even to this day.
Yeah, they can be kind of a pain in the ass.
Still are.
The other thing that's kind of crazy too, to in hindsight, is 2 pieces of gear drop per boss in a raid. 2 pieces of gear for a 40-man raid. 40-man
tokens.
raid. No,
Not tokens that could be for like 3 different classes, but pieces
Yeah,
of
it's
gear.
actual.
right, actual pieces of gear. Oh, and by the way, speaking of tier pieces, they used to be 8, not 5. 8 pieces for tier. That's crazy, man. Like, if you could even down a boss, if you even had a purple, you were like a godsend in MC. Like, I remember when I saw like the braces, like someone had epic bracers for the first, when I was running around, because when I first started playing, when we started playing, we were all Alliance back when we first started playing the game, and we were running around Ironforge, and I saw some guy with these purple bracers, and I almost died. I was like, "What is that? Oh my god!" And I was like,
never seen that color.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, "What do you? How can you beat that? That is like the greatest thing I've ever seen."
Oh, another thing
Yeah.
about the 2 pieces dropping. We played Alliance, kill a boss, shaman gear.
Yeah,
No
Nobody.
shamans.
yeah,
No shaman in the raid because we're Alliance. Here's some shaman gear. It's
Yeah.
still on the loot table. Doesn't matter what faction you're on.
yeah. That's what I'm saying. You can get it rough, and you gotta remember too. It sounds like, kind of stupid, where it sounds easy. It's like, oh, we're just gonna down this boss, get gear, and move on. It wasn't like that back then. Like, downing a boss was like work, man. It like took time. I mean, this isn't like log in for an hour, and the first hour and a half you down like half the raid. It was like you log in, and like 6 hours later you almost down a boss, and then
Boss progression was measured in weeks at a time, not
Yeah.
hours, weeks.
yeah.
And on top of that, like the gear was so tuned so bad because Blizzard didn't know what they were doing. You were hardly getting upgrades regardless if they were purples or not because they had stats you didn't need on them because Blizzard didn't know what they were doing. Like, if I'm not mistaken, at least the tier 0.5 gear, I know that had like for a hunter like agility, intellect, strength, spirit, like it had everything on it. And so the item cost of that piece was just completely blown because why do I need spirit? Why do I need
because you had a mana
why do
bar.
I need strength? Like,
You
I'm a
need to
hunter.
you need to pick up that heavy bow.
Yeah.
It's
It
like
didn't
they
make
got
any sense. They didn't know what they were doing.
It's like they
So
get confused with like D&D. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, every class needs strength and dexterity, and you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
agility, and it's just like, no, that's actually not the way this game is run, which is
maybe
ironic.
that's how they wanted to go at first.
That's what it seemed like, yeah.
And then they were like, well, I mean, it'd probably be easier for us math-wise to just do it this way. And then that's when things started changing around the tier 2, I think.
Yeah.
Is when things started to get normalized per class. So, yeah.
So that's all vanilla. Talk about a headache. This is a headache just explaining it. Now, Warlord's rating is actually still good. It's still challenging, actually. Say what you will about Warlords and Warcraft as a whole, but those encounter designer guys really got it figured out. And they put a lot of work and a lot of effort in behind putting in a challenging raid. And I mean, if you don't believe it, look at the past race with BlackRock Foundry. I mean, there was people that were stuck on Blackhand for a very long time before they downed him, even though there had been one or two guilds that had downed him already. I mean, it was a very, very long process. And even now, a lot of people don't have, Mythic Blackhand down in terms of as a whole, as a game. So Mythic content's still good and challenging, even for the most seasoned raiders, which is awesome. Even with countless resources, people still struggle to down the bosses. Obviously, you don't have to run back from graveyards anymore. We have mass reses. There's no attunements. Loot tables are balanced. There's several variations of raiding, so you can play with your friends, casual or hardcore. Gearing up is still a bit too easy, in my opinion. I geared up my paladin from like 640 to like 691 in like a week. 2 weeks, two raids.
Was this right when BlackRock came out?
No, this wasn't no. This was probably like 3.5 weeks, maybe a month in.
That's probably why.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, the normal and the heroics are still heroic. Is fairly hard. Mythic is actually challenging. Like that's no joke.
Sounds a lot like it's Burning Crew, like BC tuned.
It's tough. I mean,
makes me want to play again. If
Don't do
it's
it.
like Burning Crusade, I would play it.
Warcraft
I'm not playing it
podcast
then. Matt says,
recommending
"No, I'm not."
people not to play Warcraft.
Nope, done. Not fair enough.
It's just I don't know, man. Mythic is still good. It's just there's a lot of problems in the game right now in terms of keeping players in the game and actually keeping a solid raid team together. And it's not like it used to be. That loyalty isn't there anymore. And it's just that's actually one of the biggest problems I think in the game right now. But in terms of raiding, I mean, I don't know if there's anything that can be done to make raiding the way it was. I think we've kind of mastered the MMO, and maybe we need something more of a change in terms of like how we play the game itself, or maybe even a new game by Blizzard, the Warcraft 2.0, so to speak, in quotations. Maybe we just need something fresh, something that we can feel like we need to explore new. And I know that's something I miss a lot about World of Warcraft, the original game, and when I first opened it was the world seemed so big and it was so limitless and there was so much to do and so many cool places to go and the music was awesome and everything was just new and exciting and fresh. And it's
What
just
was there to do back then?
explore
Everything. Explore, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean there was everything.
Like what? What was there to do?
Everything. You did quests. You check out his cave. It's just different. You just go with your buddies into this gigantic world.
I think part of it is because we didn't have a preconceived notion of what we were supposed to be doing. All I knew is I wanted to get to 60 and fight bosses.
Right.
But on top of that, it was just like, whoa, look how big Azeroth is. Like, I've been playing this game for like 4 days and I'm still on this, I'm still on one continent. I haven't even gone over to see the other continent yet. And I don't know, I guess it was just kind of magical, like the world. But now when we go into it, it's, all right, like I gotta go here and I gotta do this mundane task and the raid starts at 8 and blah blah blah. Like it becomes like it's not the magic's gone and it's become something else entirely. Like the world isn't as like I said, it's not as magical anymore. There's no air of fantasy to it. It's just something that we ended up just doing.
Right.
And it's just about the raiding.
And I understand that, but I would also posit that that's also because we've been exposed to it. Like,
right.
When you watch Star Wars or Indiana Jones for the first time, you're like, "Whoa, this movie's awesome!" Then you rewatch it like 20,000 times later, and it's like, I mean, it's still
like
good, but you don't have that sense of wonder and excitement like you said anymore. So
and that's what I'm thinking. Maybe
you can't
you
can't get those back anymore, right? Like it's hard to get those because you're so familiar with everything in the game, and that's why they have expansions so late. I think going into Wrath or Burning Crusade, those ones were probably the closest times I've felt to being back being back into vanilla again. Cataclysm arguably did not really add a ton. It was the same continent with a couple of zones. Mists added one continent. Warlords added a continent that we've been to that just looked differently however many years ago, right? I mean, if they really want to do something, they'd have to seriously add more, not just one continent, like a whole area, like a completely new area to explore again.
Well, would you rather have more WoW, or would the magic be resparked by something completely new?
Right, something completely new would be like World of StarCraft.
That would be cool.
Yeah, but here's
right?
the
You know what I mean?
but here's the problem with that is that we live in a Rembrandt time, and we live in a time of Wowhead and MMO Champ where they're going to go and data
That's
mine
the other thing.
all this information, and we're not going to have that wonderment anymore. We're not going to have that sense
No.
of exploration.
up.
Yeah, we're just going to be like, oh, let me look at all the
Right.
screenshots and all the trailers and all the things before it's even released. I mean, they do the same thing with Overwatch. I mean, let's look at the trailers, let's look at the music, let's look at this, let's look at that, and every little piece of information we're crawling at the skin, crawling at the teeth to just we want our fix. We need to know about it. And
How old were we when we started playing? Let's think about that.
I was 18.
18, 19.
Yeah, I was-
probably.
I just
think I was
started
17
college.
years old.
I just
Like,
started college.
I'm
Yeah.
27 now, and maybe it has to do too. Like we were still kids.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
Honestly.
No. But like I said, I mean, like how, and again, I'm glad you asked that, Tom, because that was the question I was going to bring up is even if they remade World of Warcraft 2.0, brand new giant world, just
Like
this, but just,
Unreal Engine or something.
yeah, but just this amazing looking game. And do you think you'd be as excited as you would with all the information going to be out now, all the leaked information, all the, we already know what it's going to be like and what the first raid's going to be like before the game's even released and also the crazy stuff. Do you think you'd be as excited for that as you were for the original World of Warcraft, or do you think it's just, like I'm saying, like we need something different? Like the
Definitely
MMO
would not be
generation is,
excited about that.
that's what I'm
It's
saying.
just World of Warcraft with a new rapper.
So then there you go. So
expectations gone.
So MMOs are dying. I mean, in theory, even us who are, hardcore fans of the game that, my God, I have a podcast about the damn thing. But even I would be like, meh, about it coming out again because of all the information I can get before it even is released. So, but Blizzard's really good about keeping a lot of their stuff hush-hush. So hopefully we'll get surprised over the next couple of years and something really awesome will emerge out of that company. I mean, they already did a really good job with Heroes, Hearthstone, and I'm sure with Overwatch, at least from the betas that I've played at BlizzCon, was a ton of fun. So hopefully they haven't given up on the MMOs completely, but maybe just a variation of such that will keep it fresh.
Warcraft pays the bills. There's no way they're going to pull the plug on it.
I would love
No.
to play another MMO, but it would never be World of Warcraft, like, because it's always the husk of what I want it to be. Because I feel like, because I mean, we talked about vanilla the whole time. To me, Burning Crusade was perfection. I loved that expansion so
perfection.
much. It was
Yeah,
perfect,
I agree.
perfect rating, perfect difficulty. Everything about it was great. And playing, because I played Wrath, I played a little bit of Cataclysm, and it was just. I couldn't help but be the guy with the champion of the Naru tag being like, well, this isn't what it used to be, and it used to be so hard. And,
There's still people like that in the game.
I mean,
Yeah,
I would be
they're
that
the
guy.
ones that do like normal mode and heroic mode. I'm like, well, what the hell are you doing this stuff and complaining about difficulty for not stepping inside Mythic?
When the first time I saw someone do a heroic, like I remember heroic 5-man dungeon in Burning Crusade was, all right, we got to mark these targets, we got to CC, we got to make sure everyone's not retarded.
You got to blow cooldowns. Like Shattered Halls was stupid.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you-
yes.
I've
Oh
nightmares
man, it
of
was
that.
so hard.
Yeah, you
But
get
then
mind
the
controlled and die.
The first heroic dungeon I did in Wrath, I was like, all right, what do you want me to freezing trap? And then the tank just ran and tanked all of them, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is heroic. Okay, I guess I'll go make coffee and have a sandwich.
but
and
that's
mash a macro or something.
But that's my point. I mean, and that's again to Matt's point earlier. I mean, they're trying to make it more user friendly to all the new players that are coming
more
into the game.
accessible, Because,
Yeah.
and that's what the tiered difficulty is here for. Because I mean, we could do this stuff in Burning Crusade, but again, that content was probably not seen by the other 80%. I'd say.
Yeah,
like,
it's definitely a low population. Got
how
to
many
see
people do you think
everything.
saw Kill Jade in that level, or Illidan, or
Yeah.
whoever?
Not very many.
Exactly.
Not
Exactly.
pre-nerf or pre-attunement, because there was like a time frame where they would just open it up so everyone could go look at it. It was
Exactly. So that's kind of what they're getting at, though, is to make sure that they get the best bang out of the buck for players.
Best
Yeah.
bang out of the buck.
it's hard. You can't please both people, and obviously the top end players are a minority, so you got to please who's
Right.
who's paying the bills, and that's the scrubs, really. I mean, to
Well,
put it,
if you could make a giant curve, like a bell curve,
I would think more of it as a
like
bell
the
end
90
at this point.
You'd be like the 90th percentile or something. I don't know. I would probably be like the 78th or maybe the 50th. I don't know. Something along those lines. Sean here, however, he'd be way up there too. And I'm sure if you were playing right now, you'd be up there as well, right?
be.
But you got to look and be realistic about the population of the game. Like out of 7 million players, maybe there's 500,000 mythic ratings or something like that.
That's why we can't all be professional gamers, because there's always going to be a huge bunch of guys that are way better, and you can't. That's
can't keep
such a
up.
small minority.
Yeah, not everyone can sit at home and practice rating or reading or whatever. Some people have to work. Some people have to look after their families, et cetera, et cetera. So it's hard to make these things online.
So I guess at the end of the day, I guess there's really nothing that Warcraft can do to salvage itself. I would imagine. Then I mean, it's still
not for us, but for everyone else, it's fine. But for us, it's not.
I don't know, man.
For me specifically, I don't want to play it.
I still think that Blizzard's listening. I still think that they're going to do something to change some of their concepts and some of their practices. I think the game...
They did add Mythic Dungeons.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Challenge mode was added last.
That's what I'm saying. I think that we're getting there. I think that we're in that time frame where, kind of like in vanilla, where they would have gear that wasn't properly tuned to your character. We're at that point in the MMOs where they haven't properly tuned the right set of circumstances for the right set of players. So they want to have enough of everything for every level of skill, and they haven't quite figured out 100% on how to nail that yet. But I think they're getting there, and I think that, honestly, I think it can be fixed by server. Just say, hey, this server's now for strictly, hardcore, crazy good players.
There's no hard or easy mode. It is just difficult.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, I think there's ways around it. We'll see what they do, but there's certainly answers there.
There's less money catering to the elitists, though.
But that's the thing; it's a choice at that point. If a casual wants to play,
at the end of the day too. You gotta
that's right. But I mean, as long as everyone's still paying the same subscription, and XYZ guy casual wants to play on this server where he can still do the same thing at his level of difficulty at the end game versus someone like you or I that are more of a veteran to the game that want to play on a much more challenging, difficult server. That's our choice. We're still paying the same amount of money for the service. We're just choosing to be on different skill levels. I think that's something that could work. And they certainly have the money to open up the servers for that. And if anything, they can probably just reboot some of the old servers if they haven't sold them all off yet. So there you go. We're actually running pretty long. Starting 9:02 my time. Do you guys have any shout-outs? Matt never ever has a shout-out. Maybe Matt, shout-out to his new guild. Yeah. No. Yep. I'm going to say that's what it was. Tom, you got anything?
Just shout-outs to redpadnastudios.net. They make cartoons and stuff. Check them out. It's a sponsor.
Cool.
That's really about it. Cool. Just shout outs to everyone that played in Vanilla and Burning Crusade.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was good wows, good times.
Well, big shout out to you, Tom. Thanks for being on the show since I had some absences this week. It was a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Katie and Will will be back next week. Hopefully, Will has a lot of stuff he's figuring out. He's moving, buying a house, and doing a bunch of crazy stuff. And Katie's in California. I don't know what she's doing. Soaking up the sun, I guess. Not like the song. Never mind. So anyways, before I get too far into this, let me actually figure out what I'm doing here on my music. Buzzing. All right. That wraps up episode 11 of The Edge. If you like the show, please give it a 5-star rating on iTunes and Stitcher. You can leave a comment. We will read them on stream. Again, I got to get to that. I am getting kind of lazy about that still. Additionally, you can follow the show's Twitter at TheEdge_podcast and our Twitch, The Edge Podcast. All one word. To keep up to date to when we go live, you can also find us over at d20crit.com. We hope you enjoyed the show. Tom, thanks again for coming on. We appreciate it, dude. We'll see you guys next week, next Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. We'll be there. Peace.